What becomes possible when the part of yourself that is always on finally feels safe enough to rest? Welcome to I Buy Myself Flowers. I'm Allison Tibbs, and that's what this episode of the reclamation season is all about. We're looking at how we can reclaim and redefine rest in a way that no longer feels like a threat, that no longer feels like a failure of our identity, and also the beautiful thing that happens when we start to allow the parts of us that really deserve rest, not because they've earned it, but just because they deserve it, what other parts become alive by doing that? When I think about rest, honestly, it's something that I've struggled with. And I find that many women struggle with this as well. I think when you are a high achiever, a high performer, when you're ambitious, when you're, the go-getter, you know what I'm talking about. If you identify with any of those things, then it's really easy to build your identity around what you produce, how you show up, how you do things. And usually rest is not a part of that identity. And over time, I've had my share of burnout. Literally, have ended up in the hospital for a couple of days because I just couldn't anymore. And I remember during that time feeling like a failure. Like I remember there were moments in the hospital where I was so mad at myself because I couldn't push through and that I couldn't prove to the doctors that I was okay to go back home and get back to work. I remember laying in the hospital bed thinking about all of the projects that were now not going to be finished. I was thinking about all of the opportunities that I could be missing. I started thinking about what people might think about me. And that that was pretty sad if you think about it. Instead of me being worried about my health, which it was a very scary thing that was happening in the hospital, I was more concerned about my work, missed opportunities, and the perception of like my reputation than I was around the health of my liver, which was struggling severely. And I think that's the mind trap we get in when rest is something that we're not accustomed to, or it's something that we don't feel that we deserve, or it's something that we feel holds us back. And so, yeah, rest was not ever something that I ever wanted to really make space for. But I think over time, what I'm learning through this process is that rest isn't a failure of your identity. It's not something that needs to be earned either. And what I started to understand was that rest truly has become one of the biggest strategies that I have for success that truly is sustainable. And I wish more people would understand that. And the hard thing about that is you won't know until you give it a try because you have all of the things going on in your mind telling you that it's not safe to rest, that there's something wrong with you if you do that. So you will buy into that belief. You will buy into that story until that story causes you to have your body shut down, have your health compromised, you get sick, you get injured, or worse. I've had a number of women in my life who are around the same age as I am. I'm in my 40s, and they've had some serious health issues. And honestly, when I think about what they've gone through and I look at just like the world that we live in, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they're feeling this way or having these issues because they're what I call a part of the superwoman syndrome, which I also still have to work through on a daily basis. And I think if we can realize that rest is not something that we earn after we've completed everything or that we've proven that we are exhausted enough, right? But it's a basic human need. And it's when we create the safety and the spaciousness around that for the parts of ourselves that we have, made to be the ones that have to show up all the time and be fully available 24/7. it's a survival mode that we have to get those parts out of. Because when I think about me, the part that truly needs rest is that overperforming part of me. There's a specific version of me, a specific part of me that is probably in the driver's seat most of my waking hours. And this part of me is believing that the only way to be responsible is to be active and producing and achieving and accomplishing. That part of me believes that the only way that we stay safe and avoid criticism or ridicule or judgment is by saying yes every single time someone asks us for our time or attention. It's to say yes even though we are over capacity. It's to say yes even though we're tired, we're exhausted, we're sick. There's a part of me that honestly, I think that part of me is the loudest part. It's in the driver's seat, it's running the show. And if we look at ourselves in multiple, facets that we are, there's so many parts of us that exist. And when we start to shut the other parts of us off and we're just only in going, doing, producing, striving 24/7, eventually you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. The battery will drain, the gas will run out of the tank, the engine will shut down. And somewhere along the line, because we are so capable when that part of us is driving and running the show, because it's so capable, there's this belief that we're just an exception to the rule. There were so many times where I call them my body's check engine lights would come on, you know, and I would ignore them. I would ignore them. And it was because I just didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to rest. I didn't know how to give myself permission to rest. Even when people would tell me, oh, hey, I've got it, or, take the night off, I would say, no, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. No worries. But that type of behavior is so self-sabotaging. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be taking care of your responsibilities and honoring your obligations and showing up for the roles that you are in. That's not what we're talking about. It's not about giving up on your responsibilities or a lack of self-leadership. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you find the moments and spaces where you show up, you deliver, and then you give yourself the other part of the coin, which is the rest, which is the recovery. And back in my personal training days, I used to remember when I would have a client and we would work and we would do heavy lifting, we would do heavier weights, smaller reps. So they would need more recovery. They would need more time to rest. And they would always be ready to go in like the next 30 seconds. And I'm like, you've literally just lifted 5 reps, really, really heavy weight. You need to give your body some time to rest. And I could see them struggling so much with that concept because they just wanted to get through the workout. But that's not how the body actually is able to get the gains that it's looking for and do the things that it needs to do to build the body and get the results that we're looking for. But that's another topic for another day. But I think we get to this point where we are so accustomed to that pace and that speed and that level of output all the time that there's a moment where if you're asked to stop or your body forces you to stop, we can run into some fears that might come up. And some of those fears might look like, who am I when I'm not producing? Will people still value me when I'm not useful? What will fall apart if I stop managing everything? Will I lose momentum or discipline or ambition? Will people think I'm lazy or incapable? And can I trust myself to take a break without completely disappearing? These are fears that have come up along my journey. And these are fears that I've heard people that I've worked with and coached in the past. When we start talking about how to incorporate rest into their days and rest into their overall strategy. And this can be tough, especially if you've been rewarded for holding everything together and you've been rewarded for being the one that's super capable. Rest can feel like you're being irresponsible, and it can even feel like it's frivolous. A few weeks ago, I posted a reel on Instagram of me playing like a wine bottle as an instrument in an elevator. And I remember thinking about putting that post up because I felt so almost embarrassed that there was a picture and an image of me being so silly and goofy and kind of unhinged and irresponsible. And the whole premise was actually about what we're talking about. It's, sometimes like the best part of rest, or like my definition of rest, is letting the overperforming part of me take a chill so the other parts of me can come alive. And that was kind of that moment where I had no need for me to be in that overperforming, high performing version of me. It was the holidays, there was, no work. I was having a good time, and it was just a moment that was captured. And I remember thinking about sharing it, and then at the last minute I swapped out the video with a more elegant put together video of me in Tulum dancing on a table with my girlfriends, and the same sentiment, but one just felt forced. And I was like, no, post the other video. Let people see that I'm not always Coach Allison. I'm not always business Allison. I'm not always the one who has it together all the time. There's other parts of me. And in that video, it was like the part of me that's always trying to hold it together, she was nowhere to be found. And there were other parts of me that came out. And these are parts that my family will see, or parts that, my close friends or my partner will see. But it's not often something that the mass public sees. I keep those parts pretty hidden. And I think that I kept them hidden mainly because, I don't know, I just felt like I was going to be judged for those parts. And maybe there's a layer of me thinking I have to be better, and or I think there's this layer that I have to work harder, or maybe because I'm a woman, I need to make sure that my value is seen and people take me seriously, or being a Black woman, that I have to make sure that I'm, you know, professional enough, right? I think there's a lot of systemic things that kind of come to play. And so that part of me that is always in the driver's seat just is like, I got it. I got it. Everyone else chill out and relax. But those parts want to be seen. And that part of me is exhausted. And so I think that's where the fears start to come in, and it impacts our beliefs. And we've talked about this, that our beliefs dictate our behaviors. And so if you have a belief that's driven by fear that you're not going to be successful, you're not going to be responsible, people are going to judge you, things are going to fall apart, you're going to miss opportunities, well, then the behaviors that you're going to have are going to keep that part of you that truly needs rest working overtime. And that's how burnout happens. That's how exhaustion happens. That's how you start snapping at the people that you love, because you're exhausted. And that part needs rest. It's begging you for rest. But you're just like, nope, we keep going. So I think the big picture here is that we have to start to reframe rest as not something that you earn after exhaustion is already present. And we have to make sure that we realize that rest is not the opposite of being ambitious. It's not the opposite of being responsible or being capable. That's not what rest is. Rest is actually what allows success to be sustainable. Rest is actually what allows you to be able to show up as your best self on a daily basis. All the elite athletes that you watch, they rest, they recover. They don't just go, go, go 24/7. They have off seasons. They have moments, yes, where they need to show up. They have moments where they need to be on and focused and in the zone, right? We don't want Serena Williams to be taking a rest in the middle of a big match that she's in, right? But she knows that in this moment, I'm going to give everything that I have. But after, I'm going to give that part of me, that like go, go, go part, I'm going to give it a moment to catch its breath because I have to go back and do this again. And you can't continue on this process if you don't give yourself the opportunity to rest. But here's the thing, you know what we don't see? We don't see star athletes resting and recovering. We don't typically see that because it's boring, right? It's something that we don't want to see. That's not exciting. So we're looking at it from a very, very small lens. Or we're seeing the people that we admire that are going out and, working hard, working 24/7, but like, look at their lives. Are they truly happy? Are they truly healthy? Look at their relationships. The most successful people that I know, some of the most successful people that have mentored me, yeah, they work hard when it's time to work hard. And then they are present in their families. They are present with their own personal health and well being. They're present when they're doing other things. They turn off that part to allow other parts to come through. And honestly, that's what I aspire. And that's what success looks like to me. And I had to redefine what success looked like in order to understand how rest fit into the equation. But once I understood that I'm truly successful when I'm doing what I love to do, I'm being able to make the money that I need to make to sustain the life that I want to live so I can also spend time with people that I love and do the things that I enjoy and contribute to the world in a way that makes me feel fulfilled. That's success to me. And that version of success doesn't exist if I'm always working 24/7. So sometimes we have to redefine what success looks like in order to make room for rest. And if you truly are at a point in your life where you're like, Allison, I'm feeling exhausted. I'm feeling what you're talking about. And I know that I need this, but I just can't. I can't get off the hamster wheel. I can't stop the momentum. Well, then I would ask you to take a look at what does success really look like and why? Why is that your definition of success? Because sometimes I think that we have a version of success that we created a long time ago or was inherited from someone else, and we didn't check it and still make sure that it was relevant to us. Because my definition and version of success in my 20s and 30s is a lot different than it is in my 40s. And in my 20s and my 30s, I had a lot more energy. My metabolism was doing a lot of really great things for me. My relationships were different. What I needed in relationships were also different. But now in my 40s, things are different. My values have changed. My viewpoints of the world have changed. My POV has changed. And so my definition of success should also change. And it was in that hospital bed a few years ago where I had the moment of redefining what successful life looked like. And that changed everything. And so as you think about rest and you think about that part of you that's maybe asking for rest and asking for things to slow down, the beautiful thing is once you give that part of you that permission to rest, you don't just stop and you don't die, but other parts start to show up. You have parts that are maybe a bit sillier, or parts that love to be in nature, or your creative parts come out, or your more softer parts, or your more curious parts, or your whimsical parts, or whatever. Different parts are going to come to the table because guess what? The taskmaster is now sitting in the back seat and there's now space for those other parts to come out. What rest became for me was allowing the overperforming part of me to chill and other parts of me to get access to living. So as you're thinking about how does this apply to you, because I don't want to leave you here with nothing. But I think sometimes the part of you asking for rest is the same part that you've built your entire identity around. And if you can get clarity on that part and build that connection with that part, then rest starts to become a lot easier. because you understand, what does that part really need? I often talk about self-care as being the intentional act of tending to your needs. And that's like a holistic approach. But if we think about self-care as we're looking for that specific part of you, what does that part need? And once you understand what that part needs, the practice is creating an off duty time block. Now, I personally do off duty hour blocks, off duty weekends for that part of me. I don't work on the weekends because I want that part of me to really rest, because that part does a lot Monday through Friday. So the weekends, I give it a proper weekend and let the other parts of me come out. But maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes. But for that time block, you allow that part of you to be off duty. That could be the responsible part, the fixer part of you, the overachiever part, the doer, the performer, the one that's anticipating everyone's needs, the one that's make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. Whatever that part is, that tends to be the one that's in overdrive most of the time. That's the part that you want to give space to be off duty for just a little bit of time. And it can look many different ways. But this is a true moment where she is off duty. She's unavailable. She's unavailable to help, to support, to make things happen. She's unavailable to perform, produce, achieve. She's just off duty. And you might have to start with 5 minutes, because that might feel like it's an awful thing. It might feel unbearable. But, when I first started doing this, I just told myself, I'm going to do nothing. And I would put into my calendar 15 minutes, and it would just say, do nothing. And I would schedule it. I would actively schedule it into my day. Every day there was a 15-minute block that said do nothing. But I've evolved and elevated, and now it's this off duty, because sometimes doing nothing could feel like a bit too jarring to my nervous system. And that's when I learned about the multiple types of rest. There are 7 types of rest. And so I replaced the do nothing with off duty. And then the off duty part was just giving myself one of those 7 types of rest. And those 7 types are physical rest, which you could close your eyes, you could stretch, you could lie down, you could take a walk, you could do a little stretches. There's mental rest. And that's where you can, just stop the problem solving, put the list down, sit without consuming information. So no scrolling, no texting, just give your brain a rest. There's also sensory rest. So you can turn off the lights, you can turn off all notifications, put your phone on do not disturb so you're not getting any pings for 15 minutes. Step away from your screens. Just reduce the stimulation for a moment. There's creative rest, and that's where you can spend time with beauty. You can listen to music, you can doodle or color or paint, or maybe cook something, not for the act of doing something to feed yourself, but maybe you bake a cinnamon rolls, I don't know, but something creative. Do something with your hands, go into your garden and just be with your hands in the soil for a little bit. There's social rest, which is, just step away from the crowd, the people, the text messages, the emails. Just give yourself a break. I do this one a lot. And there's spiritual rest, which could be praying or meditating or journaling or doing something that really speaks to your spirit. But I often say during that off duty block, do one of those types of rest. It doesn't just have to be doing nothing or taking a nap. You can still be productive while you're in your rest period, but you should choose something that feels really nourishing and aligned and relevant to that part of you. Because when you do that, other parts of you get to experience rest as well, but they're actually getting a chance to breathe and to show up. So that creative part of me gets to show up, and it's like, oh, that's amazing, while allowing that other part to me to rest. So it's this beautiful kind of relationship where all the parts of you get a chance to be seen and held and loved and cared for. And in my mind, it's a beautiful, beautiful visualization of what self care truly is. It is tending to your needs intentionally, and it's a practice. So it means that you want to do it daily, setting up that off duty block every single day in your calendar, maybe the beginning of the day or the middle of the day or in the afternoon or, right when you finish your work day or before you go to bed. But find that time and just go off duty for a little bit. The world won't end, life won't stop, those parts of you won't disappear. They're still going to be there when you come back. And if you want more tips or ideas around how to use that, I do have a PDF that I will link in the show notes that you can download that gives you some other activities that can help you in your rest period. So as we're wrapping up this episode, of course, I want to go ahead and pull out my Nourish Life card deck and pull a card for today's session. So let's go ahead and pull a card. And again, I love using these cards as just a way to get some more insights or inspiration. And the card deck usually is on point. So let's see what the deck has for us today. This is what helps you to truly recharge. So again, the card deck, it never lies. It never lies. So yeah, I think that's a perfect way to conclude this episode is to really think about what helps you truly recharge. And be honest. I think sometimes we will only lean on what everyone else is doing or what everyone tells us we should do. And so we do that. For a long time, I hated getting massages, and people would always buy me massages because I was so stressed and so busy. And so I would be in the massage and I would be so tense thinking about all the things that I could be doing in that hour that the poor massage therapist was working overtime trying to work through all of my tension because I couldn't relax. So it was a waste of time for them. It was a waste of time for me because I didn't leave feeling better. I just left feeling frustrated and like oily. Um, and just wishing that, I was doing anything else but being in that massage. So I had to learn that there were other ways that I could rest and recharge myself. And lately, nature has been my best recharge foundation. I go for morning walks every single morning. I've started camping. And sometimes it's doing a day trip somewhere to go hiking or go to a forest or be by a river truly recharges me. And I think there's something about being able to be in the presence of nature and just getting those cues. When I watch a river flow, I'm watching a river that's continuously flowing. It doesn't stop. And it reminds me that life keeps going. And sometimes you hit a rock in the road and or in the process and you watch the river just kind of flow around it. It doesn't stop. Sometimes there's slower parts of the river. Sometimes there's faster parts of the river. Sometimes there are parts that just aren't moving at all and kind of collecting a bunch of stuff. And then eventually it moves through. So that's what, in this season of my life, that's what truly recharges me. And I would ask you to do the same. Whatever season you're in right now in your life, there might be things that you're doing that actually look good on paper or look good for the gram to recharge you and be self care, but they may not be working anymore. And you may not even enjoy it. So think about what truly recharges you. And then the next time that you schedule your off duty block, do that thing. So this week, buy yourself flowers for that part of yourself that's always on, that's always in overdrive, and give that part permission to rest. Give that part the permission to take the back seat. And you might be surprised at what other parts come alive and come forward because now there's space for them to be reclaimed as well. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of I Buy Myself Flowers, the Reclamation season. Stay tuned. There are a few more episodes left that we're going to dive into. Don't forget to comment, subscribe. I want to hear how things are going on this journey for you and what's coming up for you. Again, I will link in the show notes the 7 Simple Self-Care Strategies PDF for you. You can check that out if you want a little bit more support for your off-duty hour. But thank you so much again for being here, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode.